The artifact sat in the center of the exhibition hall like it owned the place, which, considering it had been carved from the bones of the last Velthran emperor approximately 4,000 cycles ago, maybe it did. The skull had been fitted with a ceremonial crown of bronze and jade, its eye sockets filled with polished obsidian that seemed to follow visitors as they passed. Creepy? Absolutely. Worth the 14 million credits the Galactic Museum paid for it. That was still up for debate. I had been stationed at the Outer Rim Cultural Center for 3 standard years, and in that time I had seen exactly 0 interesting things happen. My name is Kiv, by the way. Just Kiv. My species doesn't bother with complicated naming conventions because frankly, we can't be bothered. We are the Prelians, a race of 6-limbed, blue-skinned archivists who take pride in our ability to catalog, preserve, and be monumentally bored by the passage of time. Until that morning, that very specific reality-breaking morning when everything I thought I knew about ancient relics got turned upside down and shaken until loose change fell out. The human arrived at exactly 0900 hours. I knew she was human before she even entered the building because I could hear her boots on the marble floor. Humans walk differently than most species. They had this confident stride, like they expected the universe to get out of their way rather than the other way around. It was both annoying and somewhat impressive. Her name was Marcus Vale. Yes, Marcus. Apparently human naming conventions didn't always align with what other species assumed about gender, and I had learned very quickly not to make assumptions. She wore a leather jacket that had seen better days, dark pants with too many pockets, and an expression that suggested she found most things mildly amusing but wouldn't tell you why. Morning, she said, flashing a smile at the front desk. Here to see the Velthran exhibit. My colleague, Torm. A Hectarian with too many eyes and not enough personality, barely looked up from his datapad. 3rd floor, East Wing. Don't touch anything. Wouldn't dream of it, Marcus replied, but her tone suggested she absolutely would dream of it and probably had detailed plans. I watched her walk past, something nagging at the back of my mind. There was an energy about her, a kind of electric presence that made the air feel different. Humans had that effect sometimes. They were relatively new to the galactic stage, only about 200 years since first contact, but they had made an impression. Loud, curious, stubborn, and occasionally brilliant in ways that made older species uncomfortable. The museum was quiet that day. Midweek on a station this far out meant we got maybe 20 visitors if we were lucky. Most were researchers or the occasional tourist who had taken a very wrong turn. So when the alarm started blaring 15 minutes after Marcus went upstairs, I knew exactly where to look. I grabbed my security pad and rushed toward the East Wing, my 4 legs carrying me faster than my 2 arms could have managed the doors. Torm was right behind me, cursing in 3 languages simultaneously, which was actually impressive for someone usually so dull. We burst into the Velthran exhibit hall expecting vandalism, theft, or at worst some idiot trying to take a selfie with a priceless artifact. What we found was so much stranger. The skull was moving. Not falling, not tipping over. Moving. The entire display case had shifted 3 feet to the left, and the skull itself had rotated on its base. The obsidian eyes were now facing the opposite direction from where they had been positioned that morning, and standing in the center of the room, hands in her pockets, looking utterly unconcerned, was Marcus Vale. Did you touch it? I demanded, my translator chip working overtime to convert my panic into something resembling standard Galactic. Nope, she said, popping the P sound in a way that made me want to throw my datapad at her. Then why are the alarms going off? Probably because it moved, Marcus suggested, gesturing at the skull with one hand. Which is weird, right? I was standing here just looking at it and then it sort of shifted, like it was trying to get a better look at me. Torm made a sound that was half laugh, half choke. Artifacts do not move. They are objects. Inanimate. Dead. Yeah. Well, this one didn't get the memo. Marcus walked closer to the display and I felt my breathing holes constrict. You guys know anything about Velthran burial customs? Terrata, actually. I had written half the informational plaques in this room. The Vorthats believed that the bones of their rulers retained a fragment of their consciousness. They performed elaborate ceremonies to bind the spirit to the physical remains, ensuring the Emperor could watch over his people even in death. So this thing is haunted, Marcus said flatly. Metaphorically. I corrected. It is folklore. Superstition. There is no scientific evidence that consciousness can persist in. The skull turned again. This time all 3 of us saw it. A slow, deliberate rotation until those obsidian eyes were pointed directly at Marcus. Then, and I will swear on every archive in the known galaxy that this happened, the skull bowed, just slightly. A dip forward that lasted maybe 2 seconds before it settled back into place. Torm fainted, just dropped like someone had cut his strings. I would have found it funny if I wasn't too busy questioning my entire understanding of physics. Marcus, however, started laughing. Not a nervous laugh or a shocked laugh, but a genuine, delighted laugh that echoed through the hall. "Whoa, this is fantastic. You see that?" It bowed. An ancient dead emperor just bowed to me. "Why?" I managed to croak out. "Why would it do that?" She shrugged, still grinning. "Beats me. Maybe it recognizes good fashion sense." "This is not a joke," I said, trying to pull myself together. "If that artifact is somehow active, if it has retained some form of consciousness or energy, we need to report this immediately. We need scientists, historians, possibly a priest, or," Marcus interrupted, walking even closer to the display case, "we could just ask it." "Ask it? Ask the skull? Why not?" She tapped on the glass and I nearly had a cardiac episode. "Hey there, Your Majesty. You in there? Can you hear me?" Nothing happened for several long seconds. Then the temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees, and every light fixture began to flicker. The obsidian eyes started to glow with a faint amber light, and I heard something that sounded like wind chimes mixed with distant screaming. "Okay," Marcus said, nodding slowly. "So that's a yes." The skull began to vibrate, a low-frequency hum that I could feel in my bones. Text started appearing on the glass of the display case, written in luminous script that definitely had not been there moments before. Ancient Velthran, a dead language that only a handful of scholars could still read. Fortunately, I was one of them. Unfortunately, what it said made absolutely no sense. "She who walks between," I translated aloud, my voice shaking. "The promised one returns. The cycle begins anew." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's dramatic. I just got here to look at old stuff, but sure, let's go with promised one." "This is impossible," I muttered, checking my datapad for any rational explanation. Magnetic fields? Seismic activity? Mass hallucination brought on by bad cafeteria food? "Clearly not that impossible," Marcus said. She pulled out her own device, a human-made scanner that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. "Mind if I take some readings? Please don't make this worse." "No promises." She ran the scanner over the display case, and I watched the readout with growing horror. Energy signatures that should not exist. Quantum fluctuations that violated about 17 laws of physics. And something else, something my translator was having trouble processing. "There's a frequency here," Marcus murmured, her expression shifting from amused to focused. "Really old frequency, pre-expansion era, maybe older. It's like a beacon but pointing inward instead of outward." "Meaning what?" "Meaning this thing isn't broadcasting a signal, it's receiving one." She looked at me, and for the first time since she had arrived, her expression was serious. "And I think I might be the signal." Before I could respond, before I could even process what that meant, the skull spoke. Not out loud, but directly into my mind, a voice that felt like stone grinding against stone mixed with the whisper of silk. "The blood recognizes the blood. The debt must be paid. The guardian awakens." I stumbled backward, clutching my head. "Did you hear that?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, I heard it." "What does it mean? What debt? What blood?" "Good questions." She looked at the skull with an expression I couldn't quite read. Curiosity, yes, but also something that might have been recognition. "I think I need to make a call. This just got way more complicated than a museum visit." Torm chose that moment to wake up, looked at the glowing skull, looked at Marcus, looked at me, and then very deliberately fainted again. I could not blame him. Marcus was already pulling out her communication device, dialing someone with quick, practiced movements. "Hey, it's me. Yeah, I found it. No, it definitely knows I'm here." "Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, that's the thing. I think Grandma was right about the whole bloodline situation." "Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm going to need backup and probably someone who speaks fluent dead emperor." "Right. See you in 6 hours." She ended the call and turned to me with that same maddening smile. "So, funny story. My great-great-great-grandmother might have had a thing with a Velthran prince about 300 years ago. Long story, lots of wine involved. Possibly some intergalactic incidents that got classified. Point is, I might be like 1/16th Velthran royalty." I stared at her, then at the skull, then back at her. "That is not how genetics work. Hey, I didn't write the rules, I just break them occasionally." She gestured at the skull, which had stopped glowing but was still very obviously pointed in her direction. "But apparently old Boneface here remembers, and he's got opinions about it." This was going to be the longest day of my life. I could already tell. 6 hours turned out to be exactly enough time for everything to go completely sideways. After Marcus made her call, I spent 20 minutes trying to revive Torm. Another 40 minutes attempting to file an incident report that did not sound like I had lost my mind. And roughly 3 hours watching Marcus poke around the exhibit like she owned the place. Which, given the whole maybe royalty situation, perhaps she did. Legally speaking, that was going to be a nightmare. "Stop touching things," I said, for the 18th time as she ran her fingers along the bronze inlays of a ceremonial weapon display. "I am not touching. I am examining," Marcus corrected, not bothering to look at me. "There is a difference. Scientists examine. Toddlers touch. Scientists do not typically cause ancient artifacts to come alive and speak in people's heads." Fair point. She moved to another case, this one containing what looked like jewelry but was actually a collection of execution devices. The Velthran had been creative with their punishments. But in my defense, I did not ask for any of this. I just wanted to see the skull everyone keeps talking about on the academic forums. "Why?" I asked, genuine curiosity overriding my irritation. "What made you travel all the way out here to see one specific artifact?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, her hand hovering over the glass. "My grandmother told me stories when I was a kid, about the old empire, about the Bone Emperors and their eternal watch. She said our family had a connection to them, that someday I might understand what that meant. I thought she was just being dramatic. Grandma was always dramatic." She smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "She died 2 years ago, left me a box of letters, maps, and one very specific instruction. Come here. See the last emperor. Remember who you are." "And who are you?" I asked quietly. Before she could answer, the main doors burst open and 6 figures in tactical gear stormed into the museum. They moved with military precision, weapons drawn, scanning every corner. Behind them came an older woman in a long coat, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. "Clear," one of the tactical team members announced. The woman strode forward, her boots clicking on the marble with the same confident rhythm Marcus had. Family resemblance was immediate. Same sharp features, same assessing gaze, same energy that suggested they could handle anything the universe threw at them and ask for seconds. "Aunt Petra," Marcus said, grinning. "You made good time." "You said there was a situation," Petra replied, her voice carrying an accent I could not place. "I brought a situation response team. Those are big guns for a museum visit. You activated a Velthran Imperial relic. Protocol demands big guns." Petra's gaze shifted to me, evaluating. "You are the curator?" "Assistant curator," I corrected, straightening up despite my instinct to hide behind something large. "Give? No family name. Can someone please explain what is happening?" Petra exchanged a glance with Marcus, some silent communication passing between them. Then she sighed, the sound of someone about to reveal information they would rather keep buried. "Our family has been tracking Velthran artifacts for 3 generations, Petra began, pulling out a datapad and projecting a holographic display. "The Empire fell 4,000 years ago, but pieces of it remain scattered across the galaxy. Most are harmless. Some are dangerous. A few are both." The hologram showed a map of known space dotted with hundreds of markers. Each one represented a Velthran site or artifact. Many were crossed out, indicating they had been investigated or secured, but several remained active, pulsing with red warning indicators. "The skull you have here," Petra continued, zooming in on our location, "is one of 7 Imperial regalia pieces. Each one was bound to the Emperor's consciousness, designed to activate under specific conditions. We thought they were dormant. We were wrong." "What conditions?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. "Bloodline recognition," Marcus said, stepping forward. "The regalia respond to descendants of the Imperial family, which, according to family records and some very awkward DNA testing, includes—" I looked between them, pieces clicking into place. "So when you entered the building, the skull sensed your presence." "Exactly," Petra confirmed. "And now that it has activated, other pieces will begin responding as well. The regalia are designed to find each other, to reunite the scattered fragments of the Emperor's power." "Power?" My breathing holes were constricting again. "What kind of power?" Petra's expression darkened. "The kind that ended an empire. The kind that the Velthran sealed away because they realized too late what they had created." A new alarm started blaring. This one deeper and more urgent than before. My datapad lit up with alerts from multiple sections of the museum. The tactical team immediately went on high alert, spreading out to cover exits. "Talk to me," Petra snapped at one of her team members. "Multiple energy signatures activating throughout the facility," the woman reported, her voice tense. "Velthran origin. They are waking up. How many artifacts do you have here? Marcus asked me, her casual demeanor replaced by sharp focus. I pulled up the inventory on my datapad, scrolling through with increasing dread. 43 pieces from the Velthran collection. Most are pottery, textiles, minor relics. But we have 2 weapons, 1 ceremonial armor set. And what? A hand, I said quietly. A mummified hand wearing rings of office. We acquired it 6 months ago from a private collector. Petra cursed in a language my translator refused to process. Show me. Now, we ran through the museum, the tactical team forming a protective perimeter around us. Other staff members were evacuating, confused and frightened by the sudden chaos. Torment had regained consciousness and was currently helping people toward the exits while casting terrified glances in our direction. The hand was kept in a climate-controlled vault on the 2nd floor. By the time we reached it, the door was already glowing with the same amber light that had appeared around the skull. Ancient text was writing itself across the metal surface, burning into the material like a brand. Can you read it? Petra asked me. I leaned closer. My translation education finally proving useful. The hand seeks the crown. The crown seeks the throne. The throne seeks the one who was promised. The cycle continues. The debt must be paid. There is that debt thing again, Marcus muttered. Any idea what debt we are talking about? Maybe the debt of existing? I suggested weakly. The vault door began to open on its own. Mechanisms clicking and whirring without anyone touching the controls. Inside, sitting on its cushioned display stand, the mummified hand was moving. Fingers flexing slowly, rings glinting in the emergency lighting. It looked like something from a horror vid, except this was absolutely real and happening right in front of me. Marcus stepped forward before anyone could stop her. Well, this is deeply unsettling. Do not touch it, Petra warned. I am not an idiot. But Marcus was already reaching out, her hand hovering inches from the artifact. It wants something, I can feel it. Like a pull, a magnetic attraction. The moment her fingers brushed the mummified skin, everything went white. I found myself standing in a place that was not the museum. A vast throne room carved from black stone, pillars reaching up into darkness. At the far end sat a figure, or what remained of one. A skeleton in elaborate armor, a crown fused to its skull, hands resting on the arms of a throne that seemed to be made of solidified shadows. This is a memory, Marcus said, appearing beside me. She looked around with more curiosity than fear. Or a projection. We are not really here. How do you know? Because I have done this before. Different place, different artifact, same weird mental space-time thing. She walked toward the throne, and I followed. Because what else was I going to do? The skeleton's head turned to track our movement. Then it spoke. That same grinding stone voice echoing through the impossible space. You carry the blood of the one who betrayed me. The one who promised eternity and delivered only silence. Why have you come? Marcus stopped a respectful distance from the throne. I came because my grandmother told me to. Because apparently my family has been cleaning up messes for generations, and this is my turn. What debt are you talking about? The figure was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something that might have been sadness in its tone. The promise was made. Power in exchange for loyalty. Life in exchange for service. But the power consumed me, and loyalty became chains. I bound myself to these objects, scattered them across the stars, hoping someone would free me from this eternal watching. Your ancestor tried. She failed. The debt passes to you. Let me guess, Marcus said dryly. You want me to destroy the regalia, break the binding, set you free from your cursed existence. Yes. And if I refuse, then I remain. And so does the power. And eventually someone will find all 7 pieces, reassemble the imperial consciousness, and the cycle of destruction begins again. Empires will fall. Worlds will burn. The pattern repeats. Marcus looked at me, then back at the skeleton emperor. You are telling me I have to go on some galaxy-spanning quest to find ancient artifacts and destroy them to prevent an apocalypse? That is the debt. That is the choice. That is ridiculous, Marcus said. But she was smiling, that same maddening smile. Also kind of exciting. I was getting bored with academic research anyway. The vision began to fade, the throne room dissolving like smoke. The Emperor's voice followed us back to reality. The hand will guide you. The crown awaits. Be swift, inheritor. Others are searching. We slammed back into our bodies with enough force that I stumbled. Marcus caught herself against the vault door, breathing hard. The mummified hand was no longer moving, but it had shifted position. Now it was pointing, one bony finger extended toward the east. Well, Marcus said after a moment, that was educational. Petra was staring at her niece with an expression somewhere between pride and exasperation. You accepted a quest from a dead emperor. Seemed rude not to. Plus, end of the world scenario. Gotta take those seriously. Marcus carefully picked up the hand, wrapping it in a cloth from her pocket. Kev, I am going to need copies of all your Velthran acquisition records. Anything that might tell us where the other regalia pieces ended up. You cannot just take that, I protested weakly. There are procedures, documentation, legal. We will handle the paperwork, Petra interrupted. Right now, speed matters more than bureaucracy. If what the Emperor said is true, others are already looking for these objects. We need to find them first. I wanted to argue. I wanted to insist on proper channels and authorization forms and all the things that made sense in my ordered, cataloged world. But looking at Marcus holding that artifact, at the tactical team ready to move, at the genuine concern in Petra's eyes, I realized this was bigger than museum protocols. Fine, I said, pulling up the records on my datapad. But I am coming with you. They both looked at me in surprise. You need someone who knows the artifacts, I continued. My courage surprising even myself. Someone who can identify them, handle them properly, and who already knows the truth about what they can do. Plus, if the galaxy is ending, I would rather be doing something about it than filing incident reports. Marcus grinned. That full genuine smile that made her look younger and more dangerous all at once. Welcome to the team, Kiv. Hope you have good boots. We are going to be doing a lot of walking, and that is how I went from being a board assistant curator to a member of an intergalactic artifact hunting team racing to prevent ancient imperial power from destroying everything. My supervisor was going to be so confused when he got back from vacation, but as we left the museum, alarms still blaring. Marcus already planning our first destination, Petra coordinating with her team. I felt something I had not experienced in 3 years of quiet cataloging. Excitement, purpose, the sense that something important was happening, and I was going to be part of it. The skull watched us leave, those obsidian eyes tracking our movement, and just before we exited the building I could have sworn I saw it bow one more time, not to Marcus specifically, but to all of us, a gesture of respect, or maybe gratitude. The hunt was on. 7 artifacts scattered across the galaxy. Ancient power waiting to be found or destroyed, and us, an unlikely team bound by blood, duty, and apparently really bad decision-making skills. This was either going to be the greatest adventure of my life, or the stupidest mistake I ever made. Probably both.